Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Danny, and in this video, I'm going to go over the very basics of Photoshop. Most of you probably know me from Muggle Magic, which is my other YouTube channel where I do Harry Potter DIYs and other movie prop replicas and things like that. I do a lot of designing in Photoshop for all of those projects that I do, so I figured I'd share my knowledge of Photoshop with you guys with a brand new channel called Photoshop Wizardry. So this video is for the very beginner in Photoshop. If this is your first time opening up the program, this video is for you. If you've opened it up a few times, or you don't know hardly anything about it, but you've used it a little bit, this video is for you. Once you know your way around the program and you know what most of the tools do, it kind of just comes naturally to use how to use the tools, when to use the tools, and which tool to use. Let's go ahead and get into this tutorial. So when you start Photoshop up for the first time, it's going to look something like this. If it doesn't look like this, you can go to Window, Workspace, and choose Essentials. So over here we have all of our tools along the left, and then I have an open file right here. Yours would probably be just blank if you hadn't opened one, so just do File, New, and then you can put in the dimensions or choose a default file size. A good thing that I like to do is make sure that it's at least 2400 by 2400 and 300 dpi. And that's just for, designing something starting from scratch without any particular size in mind. But the bigger the file, the better quality it's going to be. So now what I like to do at first, and your settings will save, so you don't have to do this every time you start Photoshop up, but over here I'm going to close this tab group because I don't need the Learn Photoshop tab open. Also the libraries, I'm going to go ahead and close this because I don't use it. And so now all we have left are layers and color. Honestly, I don't really use color. I don't use this to choose my colors very often, so I'm just going to close that tab group as well. And I'll keep properties open and adjustments open. But yeah, so we have our layers right here, which is the most important thing aside from your tools. So let's just take a look at what tools Photoshop has real quick. And I'm not going to go over every single little detail for all of these tools in this video. I'm just going to go over the basic stuff that you want to know. Also, this is an annoying thing with Photoshop CC. When you hover over it, you get this little pop-up here, and it's probably helpful for some people, and especially if you're starting out, but I find it annoying, and if you do too, here's how you turn that off. We're going to go to Edit, Preferences, and General, and then we're going to go to Tools and just click declick Use Rich Tooltips. So uncheck that one. We're going to click OK, and now all you get is a simple tooltip that tells you the name of the tool and the keyboard shortcut. So we have a rectangular marquee tool. So it's just, if you've ever used Paint, you're probably familiar with this. It's just a rectangular selection tool. And below that, we have the Polygonal Lasso Tool, which is what I have selected. If you right click on some of these tools, if they have like that little arrow icon in the corner, you get more options. So by default, it's this lasso tool. And that's just, you can do selections, just draw and select whatever shapes you want. But what I like is the Polygonal Lasso tool because you can actually make points and get, a better shape. It's a little easier for me to do if I'm trying to get a precise shape. Now I'm just going to skip some of these because I'm not going to go into a big in-depth detail of all these tools. I will have a video for each one of these that goes into more detail. But for now, this is just, we want to learn the basics. So down here, something else you're probably familiar with, we have the Paint Bucket tool. And on top of that, there's a Gradient tool and other things. But if you don't see the Paint Bucket tool, just right click on it and select Paint Bucket. And then down here we have our colors. And you can have two different colors in Photoshop. You have your primary color and then your secondary color. So I'm going to swap these so black is now my primary color. and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create a new layer because Photoshop uses layers. And just think of these as sheets of transparent paper stacked on top of each other. So right now we're on a background layer, which is white, and that's why you see white. But if I create a new layer, which is this icon right down here, I've just created a new layer. It automatically named it layer 1. If I hide the background layer, all I see is this gray and white checkerboard looking pattern, and that checkerboard pattern is basically nothing. It's basically transparent in this area. So I'm going to fill in this little shape that I made with my paint bucket tool, just like you would in Paint. And as you can see, it filled it in black. And now if I make the background visible again, you can see the white in the background. But I'm going to deselect. So to do that, you can just, select the selection tool and click once, or you can do Control D. And I'll go over a lot of keyboard shortcuts throughout most of my videos, but I mean, it's very important to learn these. So to deselect a selection, Control D for deselect. It's pretty easy to remember that one. So now we can talk about the Move tool since we have something here. So in layer 1, as you can see, you can hide and show the layers with this little eye icon to the left of the layer in the Layers panel. So if I have the background selected and I try to move, it doesn't move anything. Actually, it won't let me because the background layer is always locked. But if I select layer 1, I can move this around. Now if I create a new layer and I'm going to make another selection, I'll just do a square this time, and let's change our color. So I'm going to click on the little color box over here, and let's just make this blue. And then I can select my paint bucket tool again, and I'm going to make sure my layer 2, the new layer that I made, is selected, and I can fill in this box, and then Control D to deselect. Now if I go up to the top of my tools again and select the Move tool, and I have the blue square layer that I just made selected, I can move this around. So whatever layer's on top is going to show on top. See what I mean by these are like transparent sheets of paper, and you're just putting different images on these layers or sheets of paper. That's how the Move tool works, and selecting and filling in with the paint bucket tool, it's pretty simple. Another tool that you're probably going to want to know about, so let's create a new layer again. So this will create layer 3, and I'm going to select a new color. So I'm just going to select a grayish, kind of like a dark gray color. Well, first of all, I will move my boxes that I made out of the way so that I have this top area to work on, and I'll reselect layer 3. Whatever work you do, remember, it's going to be on the layer you have selected. And the next tool I'm going to talk about is the Text tool. So now with the Text tool selected, if we click somewhere, hold down and drag, you can make a text box. So now I can type something in here. And another thing to keep in mind, these options up here change depending on what tool you have selected. So right now I have my Text tool selected, so I get all these options up here for my Text tool. I can change the font. So if I click on the arrow right here, it brings up my fonts. It took a little while to load because I have tons of fonts on this computer, but I could change it to Copperplate Gothic Bold. Actually, I'll have the text selected first, and Copperplate Gothic Bold. Or if there's a specific font you're looking for, you can highlight the name of the font here and start typing. And then it'll show up in your search result. And then over here, it would have where it says regular. I mean, if you've used Word, this part's pretty simple to understand. If there are different types of font, like if there's an italic version or a bold version of this font you have selected, it'll show up here. This is the font size, so we could make it smaller or we could make it larger. Another thing is justifying the text with these, so we can justify it to the center, the left, or the right. So I'll just keep mine centered. And then this little gray box here is the font color. So if I click it, it brings up my color selection, and I can make it yellow or green or whatever color I want it to be. And yeah, there we go. I'll go more in depth with all of these tools later on. I just wanted to kind of come in here and give you a quick little tour of Photoshop. So now you know how to select, paint, use the text tool, and use the layers. And basically that's all this video's for. It's just a quick introduction. If this video did help you, remember to leave a like. If there's something specific that you want to know how to do in Photoshop, leave a comment below. I always read the comments, and maybe I'll do a tutorial on it. If you want to see more Photoshop tutorials, subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn the notifications on. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.